Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into some fascinating material you shared with us. It's all about building that inner strength.
Yeah, sharpening focus and maybe, most importantly, how to look at challenges and see, well, opportunities instead.
Exactly. And we've sifted through sources linked to some big names in this area, people like Napoleon Hill, W. Clement Stone, Tony Robbins, too.
That's right. We've tried to pull out the real gems, the practical wisdom from all this material.
Think of this as your kind of shortcut to grasping these really powerful ideas. Our goal here, our mission in this deep dive, is to boil it down to what can genuinely help you navigate life with, let's say, more intention and resilience.
So let's just dive in. And the starting point in these sources, it's fundamental. It really all begins with the mind.
Okay, the mind. Unpack that for us. What's the core idea they're getting at?
Well, they kick things off with a really strong metaphor, actually. Your mind, it's like a garden.
A garden, okay. And what happens if you just leave a garden alone?
Weeds.
Right.
They just pop up everywhere, no effort needed. And the sources draw a parallel there saying negative thoughts are pretty much the same. They can just, creep in and take over if you're not actively tending that mental space.
So the good stuff, happiness, courage, peace, that kind of clarity, those aren't weeds. You actually have to, plant them on purpose.
Precisely. Like planting roses. You choose them, you prepare the ground, you intentionally put them there, and you nurture them. And this deliberate planting, that's what Napoleon Hill and W. Clement Stone were really getting at with their concept of a positive mental attitude, or PMA.
Right, PMA. And the sources seem really clear that this isn't about, putting on a fake smile when things are actually falling apart.
Oh, not at all. They really stress that PMA isn't about denying reality or pretending bad things aren't happening. It's a conscious choice of perspective.
A choice. How so?
It's deciding to believe that good is still possible, even when things are tough. And crucially, it's about asking, okay, how can I grow from this? Instead of getting stuck in, why me? It's an active mental shift.
That makes sense. And the sources bring this alive with, there's a story about a young athlete, Tom.
Yes, Tom. And the key thing they highlight is that he wasn't naturally gifted. I mean, he lost every single race for 3 years straight.
Wow, 3 years. Most people would probably just quit after that kind of discouragement, laughter, even the coach being negative.
Absolutely. But Tom did something different, according to these sources. He kept training. Not because he was winning, obviously, but because he held on to this belief, this attitude he planted in his mental garden that he was improving. He focused on his own progress, not the immediate outcome.
Okay, so he had this internal focus. And what was the result? What happened in year 4?
He smashed a school record. And the sources use this to really underline the point. His attitude, that chosen belief in getting better, was the main driver. More so, potentially, than any innate talent. It really shows the power of tending that mental garden, planting the right seeds.
Okay, so planting positive seeds, tending the garden.
Yeah.
That's step 1. What's the next big piece these sources seem to emphasize? It sounds like knowing where you're actually going.
Yeah, exactly. They talk about that feeling lots of people have, feeling lost, maybe like you're walking in circles. They link that directly to not having a clear sense of purpose.
And Napoleon Hill had that quote, right? Something about purpose.
He did. It's quoted in the sources. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement.
It's like your mind is a GPS, but it needs a destination programmed in, otherwise it just spins.
Perfect analogy. Without a clear target, your mental energy just scatters. So the sources really push you to ask, honestly, what do I really want? Maybe it's peace or a certain kind of love or financial freedom or making a specific difference.
And they suggest a practical step for this, not just thinking about it.
Write it down, get it out of your head and onto paper, make it concrete. And then, importantly, read it every day. The sources suggest this isn't just a feel-good exercise. It actually helps wire your brain to notice opportunities and move towards that specific goal.
And there's a coaching tip in there too, right?
Yeah.
A daily question.
Yes, and it's simple but really effective. What is one small step I can take today toward my goal? The sources really champion this idea that don't feel like you have to change everything overnight. Real progress comes from those consistent, small forward steps. One decision, one action, then the next.
Right, one step at a time. But taking those steps, especially when it's hard, requires something else, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Which leads to the secret ingredient the sources talk about, persistence.
Oh, absolutely. Because let's be real, life throws curveballs. You're going to face failures, rejection, delays. It's part of the deal.
And that's where the PMA we talked about comes back in. It gives
Yeah.
you the fuel to kind of push through when you hit those obstacles.
Exactly. It provides the why and the energy. There's that Denzel Washington quote included in the material that captures it so well. Fall forward.
Fall forward. I like that. It really reframes failure, doesn't it?
Completely. It stops being a dead end and becomes, well, a data point, a lesson. You don't actually fail when you stumble or fall down. According to this perspective, you only truly fail when you decide not to get back up. Every setback, if you look at it right, has something to teach you, something that actually moves you forward.
The story about Maya wanting to open her bakery, that really illustrates this persistence they talk about.
It does. She did everything by the book, seemingly. Saved up, learned the trade, worked crazy hours, but then bam, her first attempt failed. Then the second location gets robbed. I mean, it would be totally understandable to just throw in the towel at that point.
Yeah, most people would. So what kept her going, according to the sources?
She was right there, apparently, on the brink of giving up, really feeling crushed. But then she had this moment. She saw a little girl looking wistfully into the window of the closed bakery. And it just clicked. It reminded her why she started it all in the first place, that core purpose of bringing joy through her baking.
Oh, reconnecting with the why.
Exactly. That connection gave her the strength, the persistence to try again.
And the outcome.
Today, she runs a successful, much-loved bakery. The sources use her story to highlight that success often isn't about having a flawless plan or avoiding problems. It's about that refusal to be defined or stopped by the setbacks. Her persistence, really fueled by her purpose and attitude, was the game changer.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this first part, the sort of foundational mindset stuff.
Right, first, your mind is that garden. You've got to intentionally plant the positive seeds, the outcomes you want.
Second, set your direction. Get really clear on your purpose, what you're actually aiming for. Define that destination.
And third, cultivate persistence. Stay in the game. Keep showing up, especially when it gets tough. Fall forward.
That's a really strong foundation. But, having the right mindset is one thing. How do you consistently translate that into action? Which brings us nicely into part 2, the tools of discipline and focus.
Yeah, and this is where the sources introduce discipline in a way that might be a bit counterintuitive for some folks. They frame it not as punishment, but actually as an act of self-love.
Self-love. That's interesting. Discipline usually feels like the opposite, like forcing yourself to do stuff you hate.
Well, it often is doing things you don't necessarily feel like doing in the moment, but the framing here is that you're doing it out of kindness to your future self. They use that vending machine analogy.
Ah, yes, the apple versus the chocolate bar.
Right. Choosing the apple isn't about hating chocolate. It's about valuing your future energy, your health, your overall well-being, more than that immediate, fleeting sugar rush. Discipline is making that choice for the you that exists tomorrow, or next week, or next year.
Okay, so it's prioritizing long-term benefit over short-term comfort or pleasure.
Exactly. And Napoleon Hill, in these sources, apparently made the point that even the best attitude will eventually fizzle out if it's not supported by consistent discipline. It provides the structure.
So how do they suggest building this discipline muscle, as they call it? Because it can feel weak sometimes.
Start really small. That's the key takeaway. Don't try to become a completely different person overnight. Pick tiny, achievable habits, like make your bed right when you get up. Drink a glass of water first thing. Commit to just a 10-minute walk each day.
But why do those little things matter so much for building, major discipline?
Because, as the sources explain it, every single time you follow through on something you said you'd do, even something tiny, you build trust with yourself. You're sending a message internally. I am reliable. I keep my promises to myself. Over time, that consistent self-trust builds into a really deep source of inner power and confidence.
That makes a lot of sense. Building self-trust through small wins. Okay, so alongside discipline, the other major tool highlighted is focus. They call it your inner compass.
Yeah, and they address that feeling of being scattered. Feeling busy all the time, but not actually making progress on the important things. Doing lots, but going nowhere specific, that's usually a sign of diluted focus. It's like trying to shoot one arrow and hit 10 targets at once. It just doesn't work well.
And the Tony Robbins quote nails this, doesn't it? Where focus goes, energy flows.
Precisely. Scattered focus means scattered, weak energy and results. But concentrating your energy with clear focus, even just for an hour, can be incredibly powerful. It can genuinely shift things.
The magnifying glass metaphor they used really clicked for me on this one.
It's such a great visual, isn't it? If you just wave a magnifying glass around in the sun, nothing much happens. But hold it perfectly still, concentrate those sun rays onto one single spot.
You can start a fire.
Exactly. You generate intense power. That's focused attention. It channels your energy into something potent.
So what's the practical daily tip from the sources for cultivating this kind of focus? It sounded almost too simple.
It does seem simple, but powerful. Each day, identify the one thing, just one. The single most important task that absolutely needs to get done today to move you towards your main goal. Not a to-do list of 10 items, just the one.
And the critical part isn't just identifying it, it's
Following through, getting that one thing done completely and fully. The sources promise that if you do this consistently, you'll be genuinely surprised by the momentum and progress you build over time. Way more than if you try to half-do everything.
that story about Kenji, the young archer, really brings this mental focus aspect home.
It does. Kenji apparently had perfect physical form, great stance, smooth release. But in competitions, he kept missing the bullseye. His arrows were off.
So pure physical skill wasn't cutting it. What was the missing piece?
An old monk watched him and pointed out something crucial. Kenji was aiming with his arms, kind of reacting physically, maybe rushing out of anxiety or fear. The monk's lesson was profound. A true master waits. They wait until the target is already hit perfectly in their mind before they even release the arrow.
Wow, so it's about achieving internal certainty first. Visualization and mental calm, not just muscle memory.
Exactly right. So Kenji shifted his entire practice. He started incorporating visualization. Closing his eyes, breathing deeply, seeing the arrow hit dead center in his mind's eye, feeling that certainty, then releasing the shot.
And the outcome of that shift.
Within months, he started willing consistently. Not because he suddenly got physically stronger, but because he'd cultivated intense mental focus, calmness, and that inner conviction.
Okay, so bringing these two concepts together, then discipline and focus. The sources seem to argue that this combination is what really creates inner power.
Yes. Discipline provides the framework, the consistent doing. Focus provides the direction, the target for all that effort and energy.
And together they create this directed momentum, moving forward with purpose.
It shifts from just being busy to being effective, consistently doing the right things, the ones that actually align with your purpose. And importantly, this often means saying yes to your goals by deliberately saying no to the things that pull you off course.
Like what sort of things?
Oh, endless social media scrolling, giving energy to self-doubt, getting caught up in blaming situations or other people. It's about consciously choosing where your energy goes. Showing up with intention, even if you don't feel 100% perfect that day.
And for those moments when you're challenged, when it's hard to show up with intention, they offer that practical tool, the 3-choice rule.
Yes, this is designed for real-time use. When you face something difficult or feel yourself reacting emotionally.
Step 1, pause. Just stop. Take a breath. Create a little gap between the trigger and your response.
Step 2, choose. Actively ask yourself, okay, what would the best version of me, the highest version of me, do or say right now?
And step 3, act. Just do that thing you identified, even if it feels hard or unnatural in the moment. Make the choice, then take the action. And the idea is that practicing this consistently starts to rewire your internal response.
Exactly. It shifts that inner dialogue from a reactive, maybe helpless, I can't handle this, to an empowered, conscious, I choose this response. It builds that muscle of intentional action.
Okay, let's quickly wrap up part 2 then.
Right. Key takeaways. Discipline isn't punishment. It's actually self-love, choosing your future self's well-being over immediate gratification.
Focus is your superpower. Concentrate your energy like that magnifying glass. Don't let it scatter everywhere.
And remember, big results don't usually come from giant leaps. They come from those small, consistent daily actions that are aligned with where you truly want to go.
Okay, fantastic. So we've covered building the mindset, using discipline and focus. But what happens when life inevitably throws you a curveball? When things go wrong, despite your best efforts? That takes us into part 3. How to turn those setbacks into actual stepping stones.
Yeah, and this part really leans into a core idea from Napoleon Hill, something echoed strongly in these sources. Adversity itself is not inherently your enemy.
That can be a really hard pill to swallow when you're right in the middle of something difficult. It definitely feels like the enemy then.
Oh, absolutely. It feels awful in the moment. But the perspective offered, quoting Hill from the sources, is every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. The trick, the work, is finding that hidden seed.
So failure or hardship isn't just an ending. It actually contains the potential for something positive, something beneficial.
Think about a slingshot analogy they use. To launch something forward, you first have to pull it back, right?
Right.
Against resistance. Sometimes you have to pull it way back.
Right. The further back you pull, the more tension, the further it flies.
Exactly. So these sources suggest maybe, just maybe, the challenges pulling you back right now are actually building up the potential energy for your next major leap forward, if you can see it that way.
The story of Elia, the singer who lost her voice, seems like a perfect, really human example of finding that seed.
It really is. Ilya loved singing, poured everything into preparing for this big school contest, and then boom, right before the event, she gets a bad cold, loses her voice completely. Just devastating for her.
A direct roadblock to her passion, her goal. What did she do?
Well, initially she was heartbroken, felt like quitting singing altogether, but then instead of just staying stuck in that disappointment, she did something creative. She channeled all that feeling into writing a poem about losing her voice.
And didn't that poem end up winning the contest she couldn't even sing in?
It did. And the story gets better. Years down the line, she turned that very poem into lyrics for a song, and that song went viral.
Oh.
So her ultimate success didn't come because everything went smoothly. It came directly from how she responded when her main path was blocked. She used the adversity itself to find a different, maybe even more powerful form of expression.
That leads right into what feels like the most powerful strategy the sources offer for dealing with setbacks: reframe the narrative, change the story you tell yourself about it.
Yes. It boils down to consciously shifting the question you ask. Instead of the passive, almost victim-like question, why did this bad thing happen to me? You switch to an active, learning-oriented question. Okay, what can this situation teach me?
So actively looking for the lesson within the problem.
Exactly. Turning it from just a problem into, well, tuition. The sources use that example of getting rejected for a job. The initial story might be, I'm not good enough, but reframing it could sound like, okay, this wasn't the right fit, this is actually redirecting me, or this shows me an area where I need to develop more skill, which is valuable information.
The story about Mark, the coaching client who lost his biggest client, that really drove this point home for me from the materials.
Yeah, that's a powerful one. Mark's main source of income just vanished overnight. Understandably, his first reaction was pure panic.
But he managed to apply these principles. He paused and reframed.
He did. After the initial shock, he forced himself to look at it differently. Not just as a catastrophe, but as a really harsh, but maybe necessary lesson.
What was the lesson?
The loss made him confront how incredibly vulnerable his business was, relying so heavily on just one client. It forced him to see a weakness he hadn't addressed.
So the crisis actually triggered positive change.
Absolutely. It became the catalyst. That apparent disaster pushed him to diversify his client base, build stronger systems, make his business more resilient overall. And the sources say a year later, his business was actually bigger, safer, and more balanced than it was before he lost that big client. What felt like ruin was actually a redirection towards greater strength.
It reminds me of that Tony Robbins quote, also in the sources, about pain being purpose.
Yes, he says something like, your biggest problem is your greatest gift if you learn to use it. That if is key.
Pain definitely gets our attention, doesn't it? It kind of forces us to wake up and look at things differently.
It really does. It can shake us out of complacency, break down old patterns that maybe weren't serving us anyway. It can feel like breaking, but maybe it's breaking open.
The blacksmith metaphor works well here too, right? Putting metal in the fire.
Exactly. The fire isn't meant to destroy the metal. It's there to purify it, make it malleable, shape it, and ultimately temper it, make it stronger, more useful, more resilient than it was before.
So the sources are kind of asking you, the listener, to look at whatever fire you might be experiencing right now, maybe a relationship ending, a career setback, a health issue, and ask, how is this heat potentially shaping me for the better?
Right. Don't waste the transformative power that can be hidden within the hardship. Look for the lesson, the strengthening.
And they recommend a practical tool for this, for training your brain to see the upside, the what did I gain journal.
Yeah, it's very straightforward. Get a notebook. Think about a significant challenge you went through, maybe in the last year or so.
And then you deliberately answer one specific question about it.
Yes. What did I learn or gain from this experience that I genuinely would not have learned or gained any other way? And the sources stress that you should look for small things too. Maybe you gained patience. Maybe you gained clarity about what you don't want. Maybe you discovered a strength or resilience you never knew you possessed. Doing this regularly actually trains your brain to automatically start looking for the growth in difficult situations, not just the pain.
That's powerful. And finally, these sources seem to tackle a really fundamental point, especially for people who've had tough pasts, You are not defined by your circumstances.
Yeah, this is crucial. They fully acknowledge that bad things happen. People experience real hurt, betrayal, loss, difficult upbringings. That's undeniable reality for many.
But they counter that with a really empowering statement.
They do. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become.
So acknowledging the past without being imprisoned by it.
Exactly. You can't always control external events or how others treat you. That's just life.
But the one power you always retain, no matter what,
Is your power to choose your response, how you interpret it, what meaning you assign to it, and what you do next.
you can choose forgiveness for others or yourself. You can choose resilience. You can choose to just keep taking that next small step forward, regardless of where you started. The sources really affirm that inherent power you have right now. Start writing a new chapter, an empowered chapter, no matter what the previous ones looked like.
It's a message of agency, really.
Okay, let's pull all this together then. A quick final recap of the 3 main parts we've journeyed through, based on your sources.
Okay. Part 1 was all about mindset. Treat your mind like that garden, deliberately planting positivity, define your purpose, know your destination, and build persistence. Keep showing up, fall forward.
Part 2 moved into discipline and focus. Frame discipline as self-love, a choice for your future. Harness focus like that magnifying glass to direct your energy effectively. And remember that small, consistent daily actions build your destiny.
And part 3 tackled adversity. See challenges not just as enemies, but as potential teachers carrying benefits. Practice reframing problems to find the lessons. And understand that the fire of difficulty can actually shape you and make you stronger.
This deep dive, pulling from all your source material, it really just scratches the surface, doesn't it? It's more like an invitation to start exploring these ideas in your own life.
Absolutely. And perhaps the core message woven through all these different sources is one of potential and hope. You are not alone in facing challenges. You are capable. And wherever you are right now, your journey is truly just beginning.
So as you finish listening and move back into your day, here's maybe one final thought to just mull over, something directly inspired by this material we've discussed. Can you identify just one specific idea or practice we talked about today? Just one thing that really resonated, that sparked something for you?
And once you have that one thing in mind, just think for a moment. What would be the absolute smallest first step you could possibly take, maybe even today, to start bringing just that one idea into your life, even in a tiny way? That single small step, it really could be the beginning of something significant.